I'm with Dennis Nash, and we're about 5 miles outside of Pontypool.
Pontypool.
Yep. And you were working on a building site.
Yes.
In the late 1960s.
Yes.
And you unearthed something. So could you just tell us what year it was first, Dennis?
Well, I do believe it was like 67, early 68.
Right. Okay. And these are council houses that you were constructing, yeah?
Yeah.
And it's a place called, just tell me the name of the place.
Seven View, Grandifith.
So it's Seven View, named after the fact that it's the view of the River Severn.
Yes.
Grandifith.
Garn.
Oh, Grandifith, okay.
Yeah.
So, just tell us what happened. Tell us what your role was on the building site first, and then tell us what happened.
Okay, well, before it was a building site, it was an allotment. It was open brown field. Mm-hmm. So they passed the plans to build these all these houses and flats up on the site. Mm-hmm. I started there as a general labourer, so we more or less built half the houses, and I went in on the Monday morning, and we were supposed to be digging the footings to put a block of flats in this particular place. Mm-hmm. So we got down about 2 foot.
And were you using machinery to dig this out?
No,
or was it?
No, it was just shovels at first.
Shovels, right?
Right, it ended up with machines. Right. So we dug down about maybe 18 inches, 2 feet, and we had a sheet of lead. Mm-hmm. But none of us had ever seen anything like this before, right? So we cleaned all the earth off. That took us 2 days. And there was this massive sheet of lead, and it was probably in the region of 20 foot long by maybe 12, 15 feet wide.
So how did you know it was lead?
Well, it was lead.
Right.
You can
so it's obviously metal, you can tell.
Oh, yeah, grey, and it's soft, pliable. And,
right, all right. And what sort of thickness?
We're talking about an inch and a half thick.
Right. Okay.
Right, and what struck me at the time was all along the one side of this sheet of lead was all this strange, like hieroglyphic writing.
Right.
But us being Welsh boys, we just chopped it up and sold it for 40 quid at the scrapyard. It was just a little bonus for us.
Right.
Nobody questioned why it was there, or
Right. Okay.
So we dug this bit of lead up. The boss was off on holiday somewhere, and we got 40 quid for the lead. But then we found a big rock. So we started trying to dig this rock out, and we went down maybe 10 feet either side of this rock, and it was just getting wider and wider. Mm-hmm. And it sounds silly, but it was like an underground mountain, mm-hmm. right? So after a week now, they brought the diggers in, started jackhammering. We was on it a week, jackhammering at this thing, and we got down to about 2 foot below the original level of this mountain. And in the end, he'd put the job back at a fortnight, and the boss went off to see the council about it. And what they decided to do then was amend the plans, mm-hmm. right, where they covered this thing back over, mm-hmm. and it was the toughest rock you ever come across with. I mean, they had JCBs and all them big banging armour things. Couldn't shift it.
Right.
Took him a week to get like a foot of it off.
Right.
And he was just getting beyond,
So it's been suggested that this was a cone shape. Is that what you? Did it have a roundness to it, or was it flat-sided, or?
It was like the top of a pyramid, basically. With sheer sides on it, but they were just getting wider, and it was getting wider and wider and wider.
So flat sides, though.
Yes. Yeah, flat.
Like the top of a pyramid, but you didn't go down deep enough to find if it had a base or anything.
No,
it
was just going on and on and on. Like
so you've got the top of a pyramid, and on top of that, a lead slab, 1.5 inches thick by 20 feet by 12 feet or something.
Yes, approximately.
With writing on it.
Yeah.
Could you remember what the writing was like?
No.
Could you compare it to anything that you know?
Yeah, the Egyptianish.
Egyptianish.
That kind. I mean, I was an uneducated oaf at the time.
Right.
You know, I had a job to read and write English. Like.
Okay.
But it was just all funny writing on there,
right.
Basically, like,
right.
you know.
Okay.
I mean,
and I understand that you're the only person alive that was doing that work. Do you know of is there anyone else? Could we remember
No, they were boys from Caerphilly and Pontypridd and
right.
You know what I mean? So
and you were only 18 at the time.
I was only 18.
All right. So
I lived 100 yards away.
So how did you, when you sold it? How did you get it to the scrap merchant?
On the back of one of the wagons, just chopped it up into manageable size, like, and took it down to the scrapyard. Like.
Okay. And how did you chop it up?
With an axe.
With an axe?
All right, okay. With an axe.
Okay. All right. Just a hand axe, yeah? And that was enough to chop up the lead?
So they were all rubbing that on us. I mean, this is like 46 years ago now or something like that.
Okay.
So £5 in them days was a week's wages, basically.
Right.
So the
total price that you got for it was?
About 40 quid.
Right. So, which is like, sort of, 8 weeks' wages or something like that?
Something like that,
Right. Okay.
But we were more concerned with chopping his lead up than any mystical anything like that. I wasn't even aware of UFOs in them days, you know.
Well, this isn't necessarily UFOs. It's in the ancient. It sounds like it's some kind of archaeology.
Yeah.
Now, so that the bosses then found out about this and had to change the plans of the whole estate. So
we tried digging this rock out of the ground. Just thought it was a bell stone, you know. And there's a lot of bell stones in Wales, you know, shaped like a bell. You usually find them down the pit.
Right. Now you said that you thought it had flat sides.
Yes.
What was the texture of the stone like, and what was the colour of the stone
it was
like?
Like flint. It was solid. It was browny. There was like a browny grey.
Right.
But it was so hard.
Okay.
I mean, they were smashing it with these big banging.
Okay. Like
on the back of a JCB.
Yeah. And it was
banging it, and just little chips was coming off. You know what I mean?
So adjacent to the actual whatever this thing was, this rock, was there just soil around it?
Yeah, it was an allotment.
An allotment.
It was an ex-allotment. Like.
All right.
I mean, I've been going there since I was like 2-year-old. We used to have our own allotment over there.
So, can you tell me how the decision was made to actually change the plans? Was there any of your bosses involved? Did you hear what the...
Well, it was all the council, you know.
Right.
The council was freaking out because it had gone like a fortnight over schedule.
Right.
And they was afraid of spending the money.
Right.
So in the end, they cobbled up this plant, they covered it back over, put a traffic island on it, and the actual block of flats that was due there, they moved like 50 feet to one side and built them.
Built them up. Yeah, because when you look at that traffic island, it is a bit odd.
Have you seen the traffic island?
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. But that's the exact spot.
Right. And it's not a round traffic island. It's slightly triangular,
it's
isn't
it?
A
teardrop, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So underneath that island,
smack bang under there is that underground mountain.
Right. And would you say it was a 4-sided pyramid?
No. I'd say it was more 3.
It
might have been 4, man. I am digging back down 46
But you think it had flat sides as opposed to a round core?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. And so how much of the thing was actually broken off and damaged? I mean, was there a flat piece on the top where you'd taken
about 2 foot?
About 2 foot.
They got it below the minimal footings level. Right?
Yeah.
And that was it. They said, "Oh, we give up." We just digging and digging. He was down about 10 feet.
Right.
I tried to find the bottom with this thing so they could pull it, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
What's your own feeling as to what it might have been?
At the time or now?
Well, both. At the time, what did you think?
At the time, didn't care.
Right.
It was just I was getting paid to do a job, and we got a nice little bonus out of it. We got 40 quid out of it,
right.
And just over my head. But looking back now, with all the research I've done over the years with Tony and everything, definitely something there.
Right.
Definitely something that's out of the end. You know, they don't go moving blocks of flat 100 feet, and all the cost of that entails.
Now, the earth that you said was surrounding this rock seems to have been contained by some outer containing wall that was at the bottom further down the bank.
Yes.
And Anthony,
very fertile soil, black soil, like.
So Anthony suggested that wall was built for a reason, to then fill in that area, which would have included this structure underneath.
No, that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
Because it's it's like countryside and natural, but the soil in the actual allotments, rich black soil. So, like, I would have thought before my time, but I thought he would have been brought in.
Right. And have you told many people about this?
No, not really. Told him.
Anthony. And when did you tell Anthony?
Anthony, or Tony.
In the
1987.
1987.
20 years after it occurred.
1987.
Yeah, we happened to be sat there talking one night, talking about how developing an interest in UFOs and the mystical side of life. And I happened to tell Tony, and that was it. He just...
So, is there anyone still alive who's been told this story by you or by the council or anyone else? Do you know?
No.
And what about the plans? Do you know if it would be possible to get hold of the original plans and then the modified plans?
I would have thought so. I mean, the council don't throw anything away, do they?
Right. So if we could get...
The fact that they modified the plan, that there would have to be a written record of that somewhere.
A modification request.
Definitely.
Yeah. That might be something worth looking into, Anthony.
Yeah,
but
I thought about this, I would guess.
Anthony's just saying that he thinks that they may well have all of the plans there, which should show two sets with the block of flats.
It definitely caused a bit of upset when they had to re-amend the plans. Like, they had to get this building up, this huge block of flats. So all they did was move it 100 yards to one side, and what was left they backfilled and put the roundabout and the little road in there.
So that's directly under that little traffic island.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So this surrounding wall, which is an ancient wall, how high was the earth above that wall in that area?
Well, on the allotment side, I would say about 4 or 5 feet. And the other side, which is a local field called Bladen's Field, it was a good 9-10 feet.
Right, okay. And what about the surround? Because Anthony and I have been around that area today, and he's been pointing out all of these mounds further down that hill that he says are grave mounds. Have you looked at any of that sort of stuff in the surrounding area, and these walls that seem to go around the side of the hill?
The walls are very large. I mean, is that wall still there now?
The wall is still there.
You've seen it, have you?
But Dennis hasn't seen the grave mounds.
Right.
No.
Okay.
No.
Before you sort of did all of that building work, were there any other notable features either near that site or around where the allotments were?
No,
because Anthony showed us a map that it's got this squarish structure on it from the 1800s, which isn't there now. It's not far from where the lead slab was found. Have you got that map, Anthony? Do you want to show, just to ask Dennis if he thinks he knows what this might be?
This is the allotment gardens. I don't know if the camera is picking that up.
Yes, it is, yeah.
That is whereabouts the lead slab was, okay? This is in 1962, this map. I do believe, just 5 years prior to this incident that Dennis is talking about, okay?
Okay. So you've got the lead slab mark there. So
there's an allotment gardens there.
Now if we move on to the older map, which is what year?
1880. This is the same area.
So this is a different map.
This is a different map, but this, where my finger is exactly where the lead slab would have been found, right there. That's the area.
It's not this footpath.
It's not an allotment gardens anymore.
That's
it's something, but the wall, that's the big wall. The big wall, there's the big wall on this map. This is the big wall in 1962 that was around the allotment gardens. At this end, the earth inside the wall was 9 feet higher than the earth or the surface of the field outside it, okay? Up by there it ran out to more or less nothing, but it ran up to 9 feet. So in this area there was about 3 feet of soil, 2 to 3 feet of soil above that lead sheet, yeah?
Okay, the lead sheet there is marked with that rectangle.
It wasn't as big, this is out of proportion.
Right, okay. So if we move to the older map now.
The same area It's still got a wall around it, and you can bet your life that the soil inside there is still higher by 9 foot down this area, but it's not an allotment gardens at that point. No, this building, this is what Richard is talking about.
So the lead slab was around about here.
Yeah, the lead slab is round about there, but this building, I don't know what it is. I have no idea.
So there's something marked on this.
But that's gone, because if you look back towards... If you look, yes, there's another footpath from Top Road going up to it, so it could be some sort of...
there's the entrance there.
It could be a house.
There's the entrance to the allotments. Right off, well, he hadn't even built the road in there.
Right. If you look on this map
this
now...
road, yellow.
So it was just outside the entrance to the allotments then? This structure?
Use the row of pine trees on this map, and the wall is clearly visible, okay?
Right.
The wall is... They're up against the wall almost, the pine trees.
Yep.
And if you come down, there's the entrance to the allotment gardens, yeah? Mm. Follow that line and you come to that building. So follow that line and you're more or less where these houses are today. So that building is gone, and there are now council houses in the spot where that building was.
So really we need to find out what that rectangle is there with a footpath leading up to it. And
you've got this other strange footpath coming up in that direction as well. They seem to converge on this place.
Yeah, the other 2 footpaths are coming to where this pyramid-shaped stone is.
And here's another strange phenomena. This footpath stops at a wall. It doesn't make any sense. I would say that that footpath was there before this wall was.
Okay.
And like I said when we were out earlier on today, I think this path connected up with stuff in this area in the some point.
Dennis has got Google Earth up on the screen, and we're just looking down on the traffic island. And as he said, it's a teardrop shape.
We knocked where that bush is there. We more or less knocked off the top 2 foot of this thing. Mm-hmm. But with the spread of it down there like this, from that point out to there, you're talking like a 15-foot elevation from there to there.
Okay.
You know, it actually goes down. So to my mind, that would like account for the fact that this thing was spreading out as it was going.
Okay.
Right, this is quite a steep bank, okay? Mm-hmm. But now when we were there earlier today, there are buildings, houses and stuff going in this direction, and the school down in this direction, okay?
Well, the block of flats
it's been sort of filled in, if you see what I mean.
Right.
It's not as steep as it used to be. There's been stuff put in there that's been disturbed and changed. I think underneath our stone, originally, if we went back 3,000 odd years ago, there would be some kind of entrance in this area in the bank.
Right. And you've done like an artist's impressions of what you think that might look like.
I've done an artist's impression of what I think it could look like.
Could you just point out now, Anthony, where the block of flats is that they moved from the traffic island?
They're gone. The block of flats there was one going there and one across there.
So they've been knocked down since?
At the bottom of the bank,
right.
There was one at the bottom of the bank and one in this direction. Both of them have been demolished.
But originally one of them was meant to be bang
this
on
that one run down there was originally intended to run straight across the top of that island.
Right.
There's a bog standard rule in the building trade. If you can't get rid of something, make a feature of it. Yeah. And it applies in this case.
So what is the name of this place that we're standing now at the moment, Anthony?
The village.
Yeah.
Garn Diffyth.
And what does that mean? What does that translate as?
It's got various meanings, one of which can mean the place of multitudes of ancient burial mounds.
Right. And you think that the focal point of that is where we are standing now, or the entrance point is something...
The focal point of this entire valley is where we are standing right now.
Right. Right, we're actually standing on top of this little roundabout, which is sort of... It's not a roundabout as such, it's more like an island in the middle of an estate.
When the built this estate, they had to remove all the earth that had been put in here a long time ago. That was the first thing that had to be done with earth moving machines in order to find solid ground to build the buildings on. They had to dig it all back out, and that's how it got discovered. You had the pyramid-shaped stone buried, then a lead slab placed on top of it, which I think was put there for other people to dig this up again in the future. Then about 3 to 4 foot of earth placed on top of that, and we're talking about quite a large area, yeah? I'm talking hundreds of tons of soil was brought into this place in ancient times to bury whatever is under our feet.
And they also built a containing wall
They built
around
the
the side
wall.
of the hill.
They built the wall first and then filled it up with earth.
Right. So can you just tell us where you suspect the entrance might be and why you think it's there?
I suspect it's directly beneath my feet. This lead slab and this stone were definitely buried a long time ago. Now, why on earth anybody would want to do that, the only reason I can think of is that there's something underneath. I can give you pretty good proof when we go further in that direction to the northwest that there actually is an underground cavern system underneath our feet.
Okay, now I'm just going to pan round and just show the edge of the island. So we've got quite a slope leading down to this road here. So you think there may have been some kind of large stone over the entrance or something like that, Anthony?
Like a doorway.
A doorway.
More
okay.
like a doorway.
Okay.
I've got some drawings we can look at later on, and you'll understand more what I mean then.
Right. So you think there's maybe an entrance point underneath?
Underneath that is where I think the entrance to this big underground chamber lies,
Right.
underneath that stone.
Right.
Or that stone could be the capstone of it, if you take my meaning, with a doorway underneath it. Ancient holy place sacred to the dead.
Right. Okay.
In this valley there are hundreds of ancient burial mounds, some of which we shall take a look at very soon.
Right.
Walk around the edge of this house and estate and there are still vestiges of that wall left.
Anthony's just explaining where this ancient wall was, and he said it was along the line of these trees here. So these trees are on one of the maps, I think the 1960s map that you've got, and you think that the wall was adjacent to those trees.
It was adjacent to those trees.
Right, and we're going to see if we can find some remnants of the wall at some point. Because obviously we definitely know there's a wall there because it's in an 1800s map, is that right?
Exactly.
Alright, let's go and have a look at this other side then. Right, I'm just following Anthony now. We've had a look at the little island, and he's going to take us round to the other side where there's, I think, possibly remnants of this containing wall.
Beyond this fence, this is where the dome-shaped round hill started from.
Right.
Where we're going to walk now is the edge of the round dome-shaped hill.
Okay. Yeah.
And it once started way up there where those houses, or this one on the right is. And we're off in this direction. This has been destroyed, this part.
Right.
If you look at the earth, you can see probably vestiges of bits of stone sticking out here and there. But it's intact from the other side of this house.
Right.
It's
so
intact.
So we're going to walk along, so I've got the first part. So someone sort of, so this is part of the ancient wall here, yeah?
This is part of the ancient wall, this is where it starts.
Right. So someone's actually attached it onto their breeze block garage. Right, alright.
Okay.
And there's a newer wall behind it there, which is the back wall of these houses, gardens. This is part of it here, Anthony, is it as well?
This is part of it.
Okay.
Perimeter wall.
Oh, perimeter wall.
Of what I believe was the temple area.
Right. So there was another wall that was retaining all the earth then?
And yeah, that's farther up in there.
Right, okay.
Which I shall point out to you on the map.
Right. So This is a more modern wall with this fence on top. Yeah, someone's built this in the back of the
Yep.
house.
Now we're coming back to the ancient
Then this is
wall
back to the
again.
ancient wall again. Okay. All right.
Now, just over there, that's a burial mound. You
Okay.
can see it running along there. We can't get a very good view of it from this point, but that is a burial mound. And I shall show you some more. You can see more of this ancient walling.
And this is the ancient wall here as well.
This
yeah?
is the ancient wall. It's absolutely enormous. You can see part of the mound there. That behind the farm building is an ancient burial mound.
Right. Okay. And what about this building here?
This is,
this ruined building here? Is this
I would date this at around about 1870s,
this one? Okay.
thereabouts.
So yeah, we've got a shot of it going right the way around this corner. I don't suppose it's easy to date a wall.
This in the background is all ancient walling as well.
So this is so that's another ancient wall running along here.
You can see the side of the burial mound there.
Right.
You'd have to be stood on
So
top.
this is a burial mound with a wall going around the edge.
Burial
Yeah.
mound with a wall going around the edge.
Right. Okay.
There'll be more of these to be seen in a short while.
All right. So. Okay, I'll follow you then, Anthony. Lead the way.
You know, this has been much abused and partly destroyed over the years. Don't forget, I believe, that this wall that we're looking at now, and in fact all of these walls in the background,
Oh, there's a squirrel.
are about 3,600 years of age.
Right.
So, that considered, they've stood up to the test of time pretty well, considering that there's no mortar in them.
Yeah.
This is a feature that you need to look at. There's no mortar in any of these constructions.
Yes.
Now, there's another part of the wall.
Right, just there. Which is sort of going down the hill,
Going down the hill,
and then
going
there's
across.
another one.
It's divided up into sections.
Right. So this wall is on pretty much every map as far back as you can find, is it?
It's on every map as far back as I can find.
So this is going right round the perimeter or the edge of this V-shaped hill, yeah? This wall.
Yep, this goes right around the edge. If you look at the size of these stones and the amount of stones, it's taken a lot of work to put this together. As you can see, the width of this thing is quite phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, it's not just a wall for
It's not just a
keeping
wall to keep
farming or something like that.
animals inside.
So you lived round here when you were a child, is that right?
I spent the first 38 years of my life in this place.
Right. And you said that as you grew up, you often wondered what this old wall was, and it seemed odd that the inner wall had all been filled in with earth. It didn't seem to make sense.
It didn't seem to make sense at all. It's an enormous amount of work. To what purpose?
Yeah, it looks like
Some sort
You've
of
got
doorway or a gateway.
but sort of a
Later I'll be able to show you
yeah,
some
we'll come through it.
better
So there's
examples.
kind of a step down there, and if I turn around, maybe even a little building of some sort with
Maybe a building.
an entrance through it.
The major problem with this site is that everything is spread out so far.
Okay.
That mountain over there,
Oh, it's got like a plateau on top of it. Yeah.
yep, Mynydd Garn Clochty, and it's got one of the largest underground cave systems in Britain underneath there.
Okay.
That's easily verifiable. Now, we've come through some sort of gateway in this direction, because here's the corner of something very big.
So we've kind of walked in a semicircle around
We've
where
walked in a very large.
where the island is.
Yep. We've walked in a very large semicircle around our roundabout, shall we say.
Yeah. So is there anything like in local histories about this wall, Anthony? Like in the local
Nothing
libraries
at all. Nothing at all. No one knows anything about it.
Okay. So
Now this place
is a very steep gorge down here.
is a sinkhole.
Sinkhole for
A place where an enormous patch of earth have collapsed into an underground system.
right. Yeah, you
Look at
can
it.
see the side of it there. Let me just film it.
This is rubbish
Yeah, obviously.
that locals have thrown in here over the years. But this circular hole have sunk into the earth.
Uh-huh. So this is a clue that you think there's underground
There
systems
is a
in this
massive
area.
underground system in this area, yeah.
Okay,
There are lots of these on the other mountain.
right.
There's only a couple. This is the biggest one on this side.
Uh-huh.
But on the other side of the mountain, there are enormous volumes of them,
Right.
ranging from little ones to big ones this size.
Right.
And there are caves further up the valley on this side.
Right.
So I'm thinking that in that direction,
Mhm.
from this point back to our roundabout,
Uh-huh.
is probably an enormous cave.
Right.
And I think that this place is a good contender for one of the places where they put their precious items, their treasures, shall we say.
Mhm. Okay.
And that's what I think the old thing about burying this lead slab on top of the marker stone is
Right.
all about.
Right.
There's a very sad looking pond, but when I was a young lad, there was a massive wall around this, and that's on the map too.
All right.
So I think this is a holy place, a sacred well or a sacred spring. You can see vestiges of masonry walls. This had a wall completely around it, and I think this is a special place.
So this is like a bog.
It looks like a bog now, but once upon a time it was a fairly deep pond
Right.
surrounded by one of those walls.
Right.
And I think this is a place where in ancient times they would have venerated whatever deity they thought sacred to water.
Right. Okay.
So it could well be there may be things in there,
Right.
offerings and such like,
Right. Okay.
which is something I'd like to investigate at some point.
All right. We've headed back along the path a little bit where we came before, and we're down the hill. It's a pretty steep hill. We're going to follow this wall down then, yeah, Anthony?
Okay, are you filming this wall, Richard?
Yep.
Right.
I'll just get a shot of it.
Because this wall is going to suddenly turn into something else.
Okay.
The purpose of which I don't understand.
So the wall is coming down the hill, and then
It suddenly turns into a series of chambers.
Okay.
I don't know whether they're graves, whether they are ancient houses. I've got no idea, but you can quite distinctly see that once upon a time this was some kind of a building.
Yeah.
And it's not just one building, it's a group of buildings.
Uh-huh.
If we go over in that direction and we go that way, we've got another one in there. So it's turned into a little group of buildings in this little spot.
Uh-huh. So we've just got the wall there going up through these trees. Yeah. This looks like a building as well, possibly here, Anthony, I think. Do you think?
I think this old place is full of buildings. We've got to keep going. definitely a grave mound, and you'll see that the walls run down,
Go on.
and all of a sudden they change into a grave.
Right. So you think this is a grave mound then?
Come and see for yourself. Somebody else shares my opinion. It's massive.
Right.
And
The trees obviously were just put here afterwards, yeah?
The trees have just grown of their own accord. Well, in fact, there's another one down by there.
There.
Right.
You think that's a grave
That's
mound,
another grave mound, yeah, I'm certain of it. Look, somebody has done this recently. Recently, somebody has been having a dig into this mound.
Okay, yeah.
Somebody shares my opinion about this. Is a new one. I haven't noticed this one before.
Right, let's have a look what they've done then.
Well, you can see by the difference in colour of the stone, right? Somebody's been having a dig. It's a pretty fruitless and pointless exercise, because they'll never get in there. It'll take a large effort to find whatever is inside this place. I can show you one that's been deliberately destroyed almost by a farmer, so we can get a look at what is in the middle of one.
Right.
But not now, because we can go to that one and have
So that's the one here, just in the middle of the screen there. Okay. So yeah, someone's clearly
had a go at trying to get in. They're not going to make it, because if there is something in there, it would require a lot of effort to get it out.
Okay. You think that's another mound there?
I'm absolutely certain.
Okay. So do you want to tell us about this one?
If you follow me, a boat-shaped burial mound.
Right.
This is the front or the back, but probably the front. And as you walk down the structure, we'll go this way for a moment.
Yeah, clearly something.
You can see there's a wall on the side of it.
Yeah.
You can see it's quite a substantial width to it. This is more or less the end of the boat-shaped mound.
Right.
And at some other point or another, there's been a round one stuck on the end of it.
Okay.
This is another smaller mound,
Okay.
but still quite a substantial one.
Yeah.
And if you can look down through there,
Sure.
you can see that they tend to keep them in close proximity to their walls, as if using the wall as part of the structure.
Like sort of containment for the mound.
A containment.
Right. All right. So you reckon that's another burial mound there?
Definitely. It's got something to do with that pond.
Right.
This was once part of a temple. That pond was the central part of.
Right.
Can you see that standing stone right up against the tree? Between that post? We can go and take a closer look at it.
Yeah, we'll go down there between the posts. I can't see it from here, but so we are at the bottom of that bank where this is a disused railway line, and it's been converted into a cycle path, footpath, whatever. I'll just pan round.
Look.
Okay. So the grave mounds that we've just been observing are on the side of this hill
there.
here.
There's more there.
And you reckon there's more grave mounds
over there?
They're all grave mounds there then, you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll just zoom in on those ones. And you were saying that you thought there's grave mounds all over the other side of the valley as well?
Yep. And there are more in this part.
Right, and this is the pond.
When I was a child, down near that farm, in the field over there, beyond those mounds by there, there was a perfectly intact one. It's been removed since I was a child.
Okay.
Gone. Nowhere.
So we're going to have a look at this standing stone. The standing stone?
See that tree?
Which one?
Right through these two trees now. An oak tree.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you see the standing stone up against it?
Right, I'll zoom in on the standing stone. Okay, there we go. So can we go and film that?
Well,
So it's a standing stone which is
we'll have to sneak
next
on.
to Oh, this is private land, is it?
Yeah, unfortunately that is. And in
The
stone.
tree's just grown up.
The tree
where
has
the
grown
wall
on
was.
top. So how old is the wall?
Okay.
And look at this.
Yeah.
Something I forgot to show you. Because I only just noticed it.
We're on the side of the same hill again, and you reckon this is ancient walling as well here?
Yes,
Anthony?
this is all ancient, and I believe that this is a small temple area, or like a satellite temple to the main one.
Right. Okay. Well, how do you know that?
Well, I'm just.
Might not just be a building of some sort, or
Well,
this
look.
looks like an entrance, or
This is definitely an entrance in, okay? This is a stone-lined and stone-paved pathway.
right.
And if we were somewhere else,
Uh-huh.
I could show you a perfectly preserved example
Uh-huh.
of one of these.
Right.
But it's to the north of Cardiff,
Okay.
on Wenacht, okay?
All right.
And it's in exactly the same style. This is an ancient well. A very, very ancient well.
Right.
The sort of well where one would walk down into it to get the water. It's now a bit of a mess, unfortunately. And this is the remains of another well. And I think that these wells had a holy significance as well as being just a well. This is full of rubbish and a tree is growing out of it. And you've got ancient walling in this part. All over the place.
Yeah. So we've got the new houses here, and you reckon that the wall on this side, Anthony, is actually the ancient wall which has been sort of patched up in more recent times.
Patched up. This is original, this bit.
So you think this whole area, this modern housing estate, was built on top of some old...
I think the old village was built on something old.
Right.
I think the village that was built circa 1807
Right.
was built directly on the ruins of something 3,600 years old.
Right. So this on the right hand side here,
That's all ancient.
that's ancient, but at some point someone's filled it with concrete and put another wall inside it, then, yeah?
Well, that's on top of it.
But these stones here,
Yeah, this is all
you think that's original? But, right, we've walked up this path from where we've just witnessed the mounds, and you're just going to point out the name of this house, Anthony, which is what?
Well, grey stones in English, Carreg stones, Llwyd grey.
Which means grey stones.
Grey stones.
Or grey stones.
Grey stones.
Okay.
I don't know why you wanted to do that particularly, but there you go.
Right, I've just sat and watched Anthony Williams' film about Gondiffith with Alan Wilson, and I've come here just to get your opinion, Alan, on the archaeology that was portrayed in the film. What are your first thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts is that it is a piece of proof of the antiquity of British history as exhibited to us by our ancestors. You have to realise that in 1714 something momentous happened. All British history began to be thrown away and replaced by a weird idea of Celts. The Irish aren't Celts, the Scots aren't Celts, and the Welsh aren't Celts. If they are, then you throw all their history into the bin. All their histories have to be incorrect, right? Our histories are based on two major inward invasions. One by Albine from Syria, and that was by the medievals thought to be around 1600 BC. Actually, it's been traced accurately in that Leonard Woolley did excavations of the third dynasty of Ur in 1922-34, and he found that the greatest of the people was Dungi, and Dungi sent an expedition to Britain. Now that we've proved in spades. In the account found in Ur by Leonard Woolley in the late 20s and 30s exactly matches accounts in the British records.
Right.
And also artifacts found in votive chambers, little model bulls and sheep and balls and that, are identical with artifacts found in tombs in the UK.
Right.
So the actual date is probably around 1350 or 1300 BC, but that's pretty old.
Right.
But it proves that there is that link. The second migration was that of Brutus, and that's around 500. The Welsh say 504 BC. So you've got two ancient migrations, both inward. Brutus coming after the destruction of Troy and sailing from the Isle of Lemnos. Massive proof. That can be proved. But this was being thrown away deliberately in a campaign of political correctness.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You're talking, this is all pre-Roman, pre-Saxon.
Oh yeah.
How would somebody go about actually finding an exact date for such a site, Alan?
Well, we've been at this for 30 odd years. We published 9 books, and you can interlink the chronologies where one country has a war with another or a dispute with another, and where there has been carbon dating of artifacts in certain parts of the Middle East and in Britain. And it's a huge matrix that is slowly building up. And you can put a fairly good date on these things. You do it by interlinking different dynasties where there's a war between two ancient countries, or where there's a trade treaty, or where there's a marriage of king's daughter to the other king, and all that so on. And a matrix can be built up. I can't explain it in a few minutes, obviously, but it's fairly accurate.
So do you think any of these sites, like this lead slab with rock under, do you think there might be any carbon-based material in there that could be dated accurately?
Well, you can't carbon date metals, and you can't carbon date rocks, as you well know.
Yes.
But if there is some timber found in a location where it can be said, well, that's under there, so it's got to be that, or in one of these burial mounds, then obviously you've got a very good chance of carbon dating. Even cloth is again a fibre substance.
So let's go down the assumption that these people settled from Albion,
yes.
In this part of Wales. Where does this pyramid-shaped stone fit in? I mean, or even this slab with writing on it. Are there any examples of similar things?
Well, I haven't seen the writing, and none of us have.
Yeah.
That there should be writing. If you can link British history back to Albion, back to Dungi, the greatest of the emperors of the third dynasty of Ur, then obviously you should be looking to link those scripts, which is possible. The later expeditions of Brutus, well, if it's in that writing, then it's a piece of cake. Right.
All right. And if that site was excavated, you would presumably excavate this traffic island first.
No, you know what's there so far. I mean, personally, I would think of one of the burial mounds might be one of an untouched one would be a good target.
Right.
That's what I would think. Under the burial, what are you going to prove? That is a monumental task compared to a major task.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So you think the traffic island would be a really big job to?
Yeah. Well, I would think that I think you need to start somewhere where you get a date on it, get a handle on it.
Yes.
A burial mound might contain a bit of timber or something, and then you get it, or even artifacts that can be related back to other artifacts in other parts of the world. We know it is a fact that people came from Syria. That's why you get the name Surrey, right? And in the medievals, we're listing all the different people who, the Swado, Henry of Huntingdon, and others, right? All the different peoples in England, the Mercian, Vandals, the Mattles. They're not Angles or Saxons. The British up in Lancashire, the Vikings and the Normans, and they were listed everybody, the Angles, the Saxons, the Welsh. And they also enlisted the Ealda Cercenas, the old Syrians, and they were in certain parts of Britain.
Now, you mentioned that that particular valley that Gundafith is in, you've actually done a little bit of searching in that valley yourself at some point.
Well, because in '86, I think it was, Brian Davis, who's a very fine historian, in Panachybury lives, he and I were working out star maps, as you know, and we worked out where the major burial centre might be by looking at star maps where, you know, that's where Lyra is, that's where Capricorn is, that's where Hercules is, and we were seeing where they might be in relation to more ancient cultures. Does that make sense? And we knew where the North Pole star is, so we were looking in that direction.
Right.
We went a mile or so too far. We couldn't imagine it was in an area where everybody's living.
Yeah.
We were looking somewhere in the country.
Yeah. Underneath an estate. Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. All right then.
We missed it by a mile.
Okay. Thanks for your comments, Alan.